Boker Tov. Good morning. Excellent morning as we get closer and closer to Shavuot. Time of so many different elements, intellectual, spiritual. The power of memory combines so many of those things, as does the ongoing presence of Torah and other people's connection to us. Yes, here we are together again this morning. Such a pleasure to have this time each day. Such a nice opportunity to start the day thinking about something other than just tasks or elements of what's to be, and to be together. Nice to see everyone offering their hello and their greetings. Such a special time this morning. Boker Tov. Welcome back to Boker Tov from Temple Sinai, to our daily Sinai Streams offering, our opportunity to start each day with a moment to connect, to reflect, and to remember. And today we continue our journey toward Shavuot, toward the Zman Matan Toratenu, the time of the giving of our Torah and the bringing of the first fruits in the ancient temple in Jerusalem. It is such a multifaceted holiday, and luckily, Shivim Panim LeTorah, says our tradition, the Torah has 70 different facets or faces. And as Thursday morning is a Torah day, and we're going to spend these 2 weeks learning from all of the different amazing passages that we find in Parashat Naso, that we will read in our lectionary approach, if you will, both this Saturday and next. And so I'm excited to share more from it this morning, sharing this morning from the significance of and interpretations of Birkat Kohanim, of the priestly benediction. But before we do so, first it's time for us to prepare ourselves and to say a few blessings together for the wonder of awakening each day. And so please join me, if you would, in this blessing that reminds us that everything in our body that works today is in fact miraculous. Blessed eternal God, creator of the universe, you have fashioned our bodies with wisdom, creating within us a finely balanced network. To stand before you in prayer is itself a fragile miracle. Eternal God, we praise you as the healer of body and spirit. The words at the end of that prayer speak so powerfully of that. It refers to God as Rofei Kol Basar, as the one who heals all flesh. And that second phrase, Mafli La'asot, as I mentioned in the note there, talks about how divine and miraculous all of the different things that we seek to do are. Especially the difficult and wonderful and often complicated attempt to bring new life into the world. And so today especially, I have in mind all those who might be seeking to do so even in this challenging time, and those for whom the challenges might be experiencing challenges in that. I hope as we get closer to this time of a holiday, that so many blessings come to those individuals or those families. We continue now with the blessing for Torah study. Let's join together again with Shavuot coming in the Hebrew and the English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, v'arev na Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratcha b'finu, v'rafi amcha beit Yisrael, v'niyeh anachnu v'tze'etze'enu, v'tze'etze'e amcha beit Yisrael, kulanu yod'ei shemecha v'lomdei Toratecha lishma, Baruch atah Adonai, amlamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. Blessed eternal God, creator of the universe, you sanctify our lives with mitzvot and command us to engage in Torah study. Eternal our God, may your words of Torah be sweet to us. Let every generation, young and old, the whole family of Israel, come to know you through the study of Torah for its own sake. Eternal God, we praise you of the teacher of Torah to the people of Israel. And since we are welcoming Torah this week into our hearts and our lives, we continue with these words of Torah study. Edu dvarim she'en lahem shi'ur. These are the obligations whose value cannot be measured. They nourish us in this world and help us to create the world to come. Kibud av va'em, to honor fathers and mothers. Ugmilut chasadim, to perform acts of love and kindness. V'hashgamat bet hamidrash shacharit v'alvit, to attend the house of study morning and evening. V'hachnasat olchim, to welcome the stranger. Uvikul cholim, to visit the sick. V'hachnasat kala, to provide for bride and groom. Ulevayat hamet, to keep faith with the dead. V'yun tfilah, to pray with sincerity. V'avad shalom ben adam lechavero, to make peace when there is strife. V'talmud Torah keneged kulam, and the study of Torah is equal to them all. Well, having prepared, we now turn to a moment of Torah study from Parashat Naso, from chapter 6 of the book of Numbers, of the book of Bamidbar. And as we do so, this morning we're going to be, as I mentioned, looking at Birkat Kohanim, at the priestly benediction. There are so many different elements to this prayer. This prayer is really one of the few prayers that's included in Torah. We recite things like the Shema, that we still have to recite this morning, that come from Torah and that are in fact recitations, if you will. But words of actual prayer from Torah are rare to find. And yet, in chapter 6 of the book of Numbers, we find Birkat Kohanim, the priestly benediction. And clearly it's being described in a way in Torah that shows that it was used as a prayer in ancient times. Because here in chapter 6, beginning with verse 23, it says, speak to Aaron and his sons, the priests, thus shall you bless the people of Israel. Say to them, the Eternal bless you and protect you. The Eternal deal kindly and gracious with you. The Eternal bestow divine favor upon you and grant you peace. Thus shall you link my name with the people of Israel, and I will bless them. These words are so powerful in themselves, and yet the way that they live, even in the Jewish world today and have for thousands of years, gives them such power to do what it says, to link the divine name with ours, to make a connection between the Holy and the Holy One and the people of Israel. Out of these verses came the ritual that's known as duchaning. The duchan was the platform upon which the priests would stand in the temple in Jerusalem in ancient times, when they would hold their hand up in the sign of the priestly benediction that looks like a shin. It looks like the letter shin, from the divine name Shaddai and from the divine word Shalom, and it could refer to so many different things. But in placing now a talit over their heads, when this is done, the leader of the service recites these words, and those who are of priestly stock, who descend from the priests, recite this blessing over the congregation. It is a moment that for many is powerful and for others is difficult to accept, as we see something that goes so far outside of our analytical selves, our analytical minds. But eventually blessing, while not irrational, is something different than just the other way that we speak. And so I've found it that I personally, when I've been present, when this ritual is done, as it is in Orthodox congregations today, we recite the words, but not in a way that mimics the ancient priestly action of blessing. When I see it, sometimes I find it very, very moving, and other times I admit I have trouble relating to the ongoing blessing of that, but I don't have difficulty relating to the blessing. This simple blessing says so much. It is a prayer wishing our people, and through us all people, wishing us safety and protection, gentleness and kindness, favor, a sense of presence and peace. I can't think of more blessings that we could ask for than this. It's amazing. I don't actually have a picture this morning, but I'll see if maybe I can have one before we finish Parashat Naso for next week. That when this blessing is mentioned in Torah, it's written so that the words, the ink, of course, spells out the letters, and the way the words are formed, the white space between the letters actually looks like the hand of a priest offering the priestly benediction. And so these words in Torah, we can actually see the handprint of the ancient religious leaders of our people continuing to bless us. Torah really does connect us in a living way to ancient times and reaches into the future as well, sometimes in surprising ways. I'll share one surprising way with you. This particular prayer, we might say it's very meaningful because it's recited also by parents and grandparents over their children and grandchildren on Shabbat and on holidays, and so we regularly have the opportunity to do that. But it also reminds us, this prayer, that we are not the first generation or the only recent generation to think of Torah not just in ancient and traditional ways, but in creative ways as well. The Kliakar is a commentator who was the chief rabbi of Prague in the early 1600s. And in his commentary on the priestly benediction, look at the imagery for God that he shares in explaining this blessing. Here you have it before you. The threefold blessing hints at something that's explained in Midrash, which says that at first the Holy One calls Israel daughter, then sister, and finally mother. This teaches us the hierarchy of the blessings. At first, she, that's Israel, is called daughter, because obviously the parent, that's God, is above the daughter, and therefore it says the Eternal bless you and protect you. Overflowing blessing should be brought down from above, for God is your guard, and all guards are above that which they guard, as many proof texts will show. After that, she, still the people of Israel, is called sister, as she is, imagine this, writing this, on the same level with the divine, as it is written, the Eternal shine the divine face upon you. It is as though she, Israel, were standing face to face opposite God, the way the moon reflects the light of the sun as it stands opposite it. And now consider this last paragraph. Finally, she, that's the people of Israel, is called mother, who is in charge of the daughter, which in this case clearly refers to God. Similarly, the righteous person is in charge of Yirat Hashem, of the fear of God. Just as the daughter looks up to the mother, so the Eternal lift the divine face to you, as it were. It is not proper to speak of such things at length, but those who are enlightened know them to be true. Imagine that. Hundreds of years ago, one of our ancestors, one who would not have been rightfully called Orthodox or Reform or anything else, because such terms did not yet exist. When looking at this most central blessing, saw an evolution of the relationship between God and Israel, and was able to express it in words that say that we need to step forward and be so responsible for our world, for our lives, for the holiness in our days, that we should be able to say, wow, it's as if I am the parent and God is the child. It's as if I am the mother and God is the daughter. And we need to take responsibility for our world and for bringing peace and holiness into it. and that the Kli Yakar finds this message in these ancient texts, in this particular ancient text, I find incredibly powerful, because it reminds us that if we look at our tradition with open eyes, if we're ready to look, then it is amazing the different things that we can find at that time. The power of Torah is enormous, and so we take a moment in celebration of the power of Torah, and we recite the Shema, these words that, like the words of the priestly benediction, are some of the most powerful words of Torah that have a presence in our lives. Let's join together in them. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Ba'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'chol levavecha, u'b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol meodecha. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, u'v'lechtecha v'derech, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, uv'kshavtam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot beinenecha, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכדף פתיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם, ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Oh, may these powerful words contain so many important links for us, linking us to all the generations in good times and challenging times who've recited these words, linking us to the power of unity in our world, knowing that we can be connected beyond just our physical circumstances to one another, to the divine, and that we can continue to seek connection with our larger selves and within ourselves. We, at this time, in order to have the freedom to seek that meaning and that connection, we need to be well of body and spirit and need the support of those who enable us to do so and to be so. And so we turn now to our prayer for refuah, our prayer for healing, keeping in mind so many I've heard of who've received diagnosis or who are struggling, who even if mildly ill are having to face it alone and finding it more difficult, and to all those who stand on guard for us and make it possible for us to learn, to reflect, to be, to heal. And so it's for all of them that we turn to these words of refuah. Mishiberach Avotenu Abraham Yitzchak V'Yaakov Ve'imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah V'Rachel V'Yirapeh et Kol Makotenu Yiratzon Milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu Lahachalimam U'Larapotam Yishlach Lanu Mehera Refuah Shlema V'Ateret Shalom V'Nomar Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless and heal all who suffer. May it be the divine will to provide healing and strength. Reveal to us the holiness of life, the wholeness of shalom, and together we say, Amen. And now that we've had some time to be together and to reflect, it is time to remember. And so now we remember those who died in recent days and weeks. During the period of Shloshim, the past 30 days, we extend our condolences to the families of Ovid Ben-Ari, Andrew Kosman, Paula Rich, Susie Matei Veda, Esther Siskind, Cheryl Okorovsky, Irving Coben, Julius Bell, Diane Novak. And we also remember all victims of violence and terror, including Amit Ben Igal. On your site today, this 5th day of Sivan, just before the holiday. We honor the memories of James Howard Banks, Fanny Burstein, Itzhak Fenster, Ray Filderman Lebo, Stanley Karn, Hyman Kapatowski, Meyer Levine, Gunter Orbach, Annette Schneider, Irving Silverman, Ernest Simon, Murray J. Warner, Minnie Weingarten, Bill Weinstein. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing to us. Our griefs and our sympathies are mingled as we turn together to words sanctified by memory, words glorified by hope in the Kaddish Yatom. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabah, be'alma divera chirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru, amen. יהא שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים, עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו, Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and bring comfort and strength to all who remember. And together we say, Amen. It's really very wonderful to be here with you this morning. And so we want to, and also on this Sinai Students, we want to acknowledge that a contribution has been made to the Minyan Fund by the Kapatowski and Morrison families, observing Yortzeit for Hyman Kapatowski. May this be a day of blessing and peace and holiness. Boker Tov.